Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about some Blood DK / general tank tips for the bosses in TOGC. So let's begin, starting with the Beast of Northrend. And I think everyone knows it's not really a guide to the bosses, mechanics specifically, just what you can do specifically as a DK or a tank, or in some cases a class in general. But starting with Gormok the Impaler, he's a tank and spink, right? He doesn't really do anything that's super tricky or eccentric for Blood DKs to exploit specifically. He just hits really hard. He has an impale, which also hits you pretty hard for a lot of weapon damage and puts a bleed on you. And he summons kobolds. He doesn't really do anything else other than that, so he's just a tank and spink. As far as handling his impale, there's no real, suggestion other than use your cooldowns liberally, especially if you have high stacks of impale or the boss has high stacks of the rising anger, which is the buff right here. Other than that, pretty easy tank and spink, right? The second boss we have are two Jormongers, however you want to pronounce it, Acidmaw and Dreadscale, and depending on which one you tank, slightly changes how you do the fight, or depending on which one you kill, slightly changes how you do the fight. For my group, I tank Dreadscale, and my co-tank, who is a paladin, he tanks Acidmaw. So for Dreadscale, just make sure you use anti-magic shell on his molten spew, and it will be no different if you were tanking Acidmaw. Make sure you use AMS or some sort of cooldown on acidic spew. One trick that I am going to mention that I have not been able to, test myself, but what I read actually on the Wowhead comment section, and it got a couple upvotes, so I'm assuming this works. I haven't heard any negativity about it either in the comment section or on Discord, but I don't want to put the sole stamp of approval on it until I can do it myself. But apparently when the bosses are in their mobile stance, not their stationary stance, their mobile state, so either when Dreadscale's mobile or when Acidmaw's mobile, their debuffs, their respective debuffs, which would be Burning Bile and Paralytic Toxin, get applied via a bite. So if you see here, I'm going to highlight it. Acidmaw will use Paralytic Bite. Oops, I'm not trying to drag the hyperlink. I guess I'll drag it from right here. And Paralytic Bite, if you have AMS up before he bites you, you will not get Paralytic Toxin. That's what I'm reading. And I would assume the same thing is the case for Dreadscale's Burning Bite, which if you have AMS up, you won't get Burning Bile. Now, you probably want to use this trick on Acidmaw over Dreadscale, because Burning Bite and Burning Bile both aren't really too difficult to deal with, right? Like, it's just a debuff that people got to spread out for Burning Bite. Paralytic Toxin, Paralytic Toxin, that will, eventually paralyze you for movement, which is really bad. So if you are tanking Acidmaw and he is mobile, try to use AMS to stop the Paralytic Bite, and it may stop you from getting the Paralytic Toxin debuff. Like I said, I have not got a chance to test this myself, so I can't give it the sole stamp of approval. I've seen it in comments on Wowhead. I haven't seen anything really in the Death Knight Discord, so I can't fact check this one, but I will try it, because now that it's come to me, I'm gonna try it out for next week for the reset. But it's something that any DK can really try if they're tanking Acidmaw or Dreadscale. So keep that in mind. And then the last boss we have here as part of the Northrend Beast is Icehowl. So Icehowl is probably the most dangerous of the bunch, even though probably a lot of pug groups wipe on the big worms more. Icehowl hits the tanks pretty hard. He does hit pretty hard, and he has this ability called Ferocious Butt, which is a crazy name for an ability. But anyway, Ferocious Butt hits really hard, and it stuns you for 2.5 seconds. Now, there are things we can do. If you have Icebound Fortitude active before he hits you with Ferocious Butt, you won't get stunned. That's really, really good to know, because not only are you not reducing the damage that the ability does, you're also reducing the follow-up damage that he does. Because one thing about being stunned, you can't dodge, you can't parry, other things they can't block, so you're just susceptible to whatever comes your way. Now, bosses can still miss you even while you're stunned. So like if I'm stunned, the boss's auto attack can still miss me if I get lucky on the avoidance roll. But I can't dodge, can't parry, can't attack because I'm stunned, right? But again, if I have Icebound Fortitude up, I won't get stunned. I'll reduce the damage that Ferocious Butt does, and I'll reduce the follow-up damage. Another thing you can do outside of Icebound Fortitude is you can use the human racial if you play human, the Will to Survive racial, and you can immediately break out of the Ferocious Butt stun. Now, obviously, you're still going to take that hit, right? Because Ferocious Butt cannot miss. You're still going to take that hit. But as soon as it happens, you can immediately break it. This way, the follow-up damage that he does, it can still be dodged and parried. So you might take like a second or a half a second of it, but all things considered, breaking the stun is a lot better than not breaking it. So keep that in mind for Icehowl. All right, next fight we have Lord Jaraxas. And honestly, there's really nothing special going on about Lord Jaraxas. He is the easiest boss in the entire, probably the entire expansion, to be honest. I like to think of him as the patchwork of TOC, even though he has more like mechanics than patchwork. Patchwork literally only did a fast auto attack, an opportunity strike, and he enraged at 5%. Lord Jaraxas does other things, so he summons as all that other good stuff. But Lord Jaraxas is incredibly easy, and in terms of tanking, all you really have to worry about is his Fell Fireball, which doesn't really even do anything like that, even if it's not being interrupted. Even though it should be, if it's not really doing that much. It puts a dot on you. If it's not, you can be dispelled. Don't worry about it. Lord Jaraxas is very easy. To counter the Fireball, of course, you can use Mind Freeze. If there are no interrupts available, you can use Anti-Magic Shell before the cast completes to help soak up some of that damage. But there's really nothing too much going on with Lord Jaraxas in terms of tanking. For the adds, there's two that he summons, the Mistress of Pain and the Fell Flame Infernal. Now, I know for a fact the Infernals can be death gripped. I'm not sure if the Mistress of Pain are immune to them, but I know after they leaped, I tried to death grip them and it said it was immune. I don't know if that was just an ill-timed death grip or they're really immune to the death grip mechanic, like the force movement. So keep that in mind, that the Infernals definitely can be gripped, but the Mistress of Pain, whether it was a glitch or not a glitch, for some reason can't be death gripped. They'll still be taunted by death grip, but they won't be pulled to you. So keep that in mind for both of these ads. Other than that, Lord Jaraxas is a super easy fight. There's nothing really, no tricky tricks here. Next, we have everyone's favorite fight, which is the Faction Champions. A lot of people have a love-hate relationship with this fight. I think it's okay. Like, it is what it is at this point. So for the Faction Champions, you will not be traditionally tanking. So a lot of DKs just go into their off spec, their DPS spec. I do the same. There are some things just centric to DKs that you can do. So as an example, we have a Strangulate. That's a really good silence to just stop casters from healing or stop casters from doing damage. We have Chains of Ice to stop all of the melee, save for the Ret Paladin who likes to put freedom. So we got to keep that in mind, but you can still just rechains him. And we have Grips to pull, to peel. We can peel the warrior off people if he charges and Blade Storms. We can do a lot. One thing I do want to note that is blood centric, if you're playing Blood DPS on this fight, or you happen to spec into Dancing Rune Weapon as a tank, whatever, is what you can do is when the fight starts, you apply your diseases, you get everything up, you get your runic power up. If you summon the Dancing Rune Weapon and you reapply your diseases with Icy Touch and Plague Strike, not through Pestilence, but actually hit the two abilities that apply the diseases, the Dancing Rune Weapon will also apply of the same diseases, and they will stack up to 2. And then you hit Pestilence and you can spread 2 stacks of your diseases to all of the mobs. And I gotta tell you, I've done this before and it feels incredible. And another thing I do want to mention that's eccentric to DKs is this right here, Champion's Aegis. So generally speaking, all these mini bosses that you see on this list here has an aura that makes them take 75% reduced damage from AoE effects, right? Death and Decay, Blizzard, whatever have you. However, Champion's Aegis is not affected by diseases spread through Pestilence. So that means you're going to get the full benefit of those double stack diseases if you play Dancing Rune Weapon. If you're an Unholy DK, your Pestilence is still going to spread and your diseases are just going to be just as strong. They're going to get hit with Wandering Plague. It's going to be lovely. It's going to be absolutely lovely. So keep that in mind. Champion's Aegis does not affect diseases spread through Pestilence. And if you play Blood with Dancing Rune Weapon, you can double stack your diseases and spread them, and it looks amazing. Next fight we have, which is probably my favorite fight in this raid, is Twin Valks. So Twin Valks, we have the light boss and we have the dark boss. Normally speaking, I tank Lightbane. I don't know how to pronounce her first name, so we're just gonna call her Lightbane, and my co-tank gets Darkbane. And again, this is a fight where it's nothing really DK centric, but I am going to mention something that does include a DK ability, right? So for the strat that we use, we have the majority of our raid group take Dark Essence, and then we have, you know, like 4 or 5 people take a Light Essence, right? And people with the Light Essence are used as blockers. We have everyone with the Dark Essence buff stacked right on top of the bosses. We pull the bosses together. Everyone stacks. All the Shadow Orbs come in. Now everyone's getting the buff. Life is good. When the White Orbs come in, we have those 5 people I mentioned. They block. So they run into the Light Orb. They collide, making sure that they don't hit these stacked people with Dark Essence, because then it would be a bad time. Now, if you're like me, I take the Dark Essence and I take the Light Boss. What you have to know is, since we're soaking Dark Orbs and they're considered shadow damage, things like Shadow Protection, which is right here, which is the Priest buff, Shadow Resistance Aura, and Anti-Magic Shell have a chance to not allow you to get stacks of the Dark Orb. Yeah, because it's still considered a damaging effect, so your resistances are still intact. So even though you're stacked with your group and you're letting all the Dark Orbs fly in, there's a chance that you could, you know, resist some of the stacks that you get, which makes it a slower process into getting up to Empowered Darkness, which is what you want. That's what you want, the big 100% damage increase, right? So keep that in mind. Shadow Protection, Shadow Resistance Aura, Anti-Magic Shell will have a chance to not give you the stack if you get hit by the Dark Orb. So keep that in mind. I don't know if this is a bug that's going to get fixed. Maybe Blizzard doesn't even know about this. Who knows? But that's all I got to say really about the Twin Valks. And lastly, we have the last boss of the raid, which might be my second favorite fight, probably, Anub'arak. So there's a couple things I want to mention with Anub'arak. Number 1, his Freezing Slash. So this isn't a tank ability. He'll hit you with Freezing Slash. It deals 25% Frost Strike damage, which is Frost and Physical, and it freezes you in a block of ice for 3 seconds. Now, this freeze is technically considered a stun. When you get it, if you mouse over it, it says stun, right? It might even say it in the item information if I click on this, right? But anyway, it's considered a stun. However, if you have Icebound Fortitude active before this comes in and then you get hit while it's up, it's still not going to make you immune to the stun. So even though right here it's saying it's similar to Icehowl's Ferocious Butt, it kind of is, because it stuns you and it stops you from dodging, parrying, and blocking. But the difference is Icebound Fortitude will not protect you from Freezing Slash's stun effect. So keep that in mind. Sure, Icebound Fortitude still should be used because it will reduce the damage, the follow-up damage that he's doing. And not for nothing, Anub'arak on Heroic, he hits pretty hard. Like, I think my unmitigated hits, he was hitting me for about 24k. So he can put some work in. But don't be expected to be freed from the Freezing Slash stun effect with Icebound Fortitude, because it will not happen. Neither will the Will to Survive. It's its own weird stun effect, right? So those things cannot save you from Freezing Slash. The second thing I want to talk about is really in his third phase, which I'll scroll down here. Phase 3. There we go. When he activates Leeching Swarm. So Leeching Swarm, really quick, releases a swarm of insects that attacks the casters, leeching 30% of the target's current health every 1 second, right? A minimum of 250 health can be leeched. So basically, this ability, whatever your current health is, will heal. 30% of that will go to the boss and no heal. This is important, especially when you have Empowering Blood active, because when you increase your health that much by 15% and you're increasing the healing effects on you, chances are you're going to be full health and you're going to have even more health. Now, he's going to heal for 30% of that. And I did 2 pulls technically. I did 2 pulls. I had 2 pulls during my raid night where I had 1 pull where I didn't use Vent Blood, and I had 1 pull where I did use Vent Blood, and the healing difference that Anub'arak did to himself was crazy. Now, I will say this. I'm not telling you not to use Vent Blood, but be very mindful of when you use it. So as an example, if Anub'arak is at like 4%, 3%, that's probably not the best time to use Vent Blood, because you're just going to contribute to him healing that much more, and that fight taking that much longer, and someone might be dying to Penetrating Cold because you pop Vent Blood and now he's healing for a little bit more now. So maybe not the best time to use it if he's at super low health. Just be mindful of when you use it. For me, I try to use it right when he starts using Leeching Swarm, because he's already pretty high. He's already at like, 28, 27% after he initiates the phase. I can use Vamp Blood. I know his melees are still going to hurt. I know Freezing Slash is about to come up, so Vamp Blood is going to help most in the beginning. As his health gets lower, again, just be mindful of when you use Vamp Blood, because you're only just going to contribute to Anub'arak's self-healing. So, a side note I do want to mention about Leeching Swarm, something that I saw in the logs, and this is specifically for Blood DKs, is that Leeching Swarm seems to not be proccing the Spell Deflection talent. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to type it out here, just for those, if you never played a Blood DK, you don't know what Spell Deflection is. Bring it up, hopefully the tooltip comes up. There we go. So Spell Deflection is a talent in the Blood tree, and as you can see here, you have a chance equal to your parry chance of taking 45% less damage from a direct spell. Most people get confused at that wording at the end here, a direct spell. They think it's like a projectile, like a Shadow Bolt. It's not the case with Spell Deflection. Any magic damage that you take can proc Spell Deflection based off your parry chance. So I know for me, I have about 24% parry, so that means I would have about a 24% chance in Spell Deflection proccing, meaning the next hit that I would take is, magic damage that is reduced by 45%. So that's really what that means. But for some reason, Leeching Swarm, even though it's considered nature damage, it's affected by nature resistances, doesn't proc Spell Deflection. And I went through all of our attempts on Anub'arak for a couple of nights, and at no point did I ever get a Spell Deflection proc on Anub'arak. I've got it on the other bosses. I got it on Twin Valks, got it on Lord Jaraxas, got it on the Fire, on the the Northrend Beast. But for some reason, Leeching Swarm does not proc Spell Deflection, which is sad because that's a lot of damage that it can mitigate. Maybe that's the thing that Blizzard, implemented, like a sneak nerf, or I guess a sneak buff to Leeching Swarm in this case, because maybe Death Knights would just be too strong because it's constant ticking damage. So every tick would be a 24% chance in my case to proc Leeching Swarm, which is kind of strong. So I can understand, but I don't understand why they would let something like the AoE, the ticking AoE on Twin Valks be okay for Spell Deflection and not for Leeching Swarm. But it's the last boss, who knows? I don't even know if Blizzard did that. That's just headcanon. But anyway, yeah, Spell Deflection does not seem to be proccing off of Leeching Swarm. And I guess I could mention the ads. The ads don't really have anything tank-centric. Tank them on the ice. Make sure you have something up for exposed weakness. They can be death gripped, and they will be pulled to you. So that's the thing, you can get them in place pretty quickly. But other than that, it's not really too much to go on there. And that's really it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate it. If you like what you saw, please consider liking and subscribing, as it helps the channel grow greatly. Also, send me a comment. I'll respond to it. Let me know what's up. Let me know what you thought about this. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this. I don't know. Drop me a comment. I'll get back to you. But as always, you've been great. I've been Soul, and I'm out. Peace.